Lioness sunk, and that broke the connection. But actually, the whole island was called Lioness. They just never told you that fact. Well, actually, it's not Lioness. There's a breakdown from that. It's Laos, Atlantis, Laos. That was the actual original part. It was connected to Cornwall, Cardigan Bay, and Brittany, and it was woods, woodland. And it sank. And if you go out just past St Michael's Mount, well, the mount down at Cornwall where I was born, if you go past that and you go out into the sea, on a very still day, you can still see the tops of the trees.
Really?
And all tops of the trees are still there. Yeah, all fossilised tops of the trees. Yeah, it's very interesting, all that sort of subject. There's very interesting stuff that's come about from a friend of mine who's a monk, who told me a very fascinating story actually. That's it's going to be in my book. It's elaborated on, obviously, to make it. But he told me a very, very fascinating story, which millions and millions of people believe. Millions. I might touch on that later. Depends. If you're religious, you won't like it. Right. So if you are religious, I won't talk about it. I'm not here to upset anybody.
I was on Cromer Beach a couple of weeks ago, and there was a very nice story about a mammoth that was found on the face, and there is now a protected beach, and it was just felt very, it was just a nice privilege to be there and listen to all the history. You couldn't take anything off the beach; it's all protected.
Yeah, that's there is a lot of places like that. There's obviously a lot of places on the island that we just don't realise exist, and it's lovely to go to these places. I mean, the Mount is very, very significant in a lot of ways. There's a lot of stories about the Mount. And St Michael's Mount was just a corruption. It's never called that. It was called Mount Sion.
Right.
And that's why there's Mara Zion. It's not Mara Zion, it's Mara Sion. It's the mother of Sion, which is Mara, is one of the oldest words for mother. And then Sion is Shun in Welsh, and it's Welsh slang for John. So it's the mother of John and the Mount of John. And that kind of gives you the...
You should know that, you're Welsh.
Where it's coming from. Yeah, Shun, S-I-O-N, Shun.
Is that linked to the Order of St John?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that you've got to go a long way back in history, and you've got to look at what happened and why the Order of St John of Jerusalem actually come about. And there's two elements to that as well. But all the orders carry duality. There's always two elements to the orders. I kind of looked at this. Going back to what I was saying about the country, I looked at the country, and absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I looked at it, and I looked on pieces of paper, and I saw legally defined areas of land. That's what I saw. So, and there's these dotted lines around everything. Like you say, the counties, there's dotted lines. And I always have a giggle with audiences, and I say, well, I've been everywhere, and I can't see these dotted lines anywhere. You're just told that these borders and boundaries are here and whatever. And I said, well, so this is a legally defined area, and I'm committed to this land. I'm legally committed to this land. I can't leave when I want to. I can only leave if I have the money to leave, if I have a passport, if I have a birth certificate in the first place to be able to get the passport. So otherwise I'm legal, so that means, well, I'm in prison. That's what it means. I'm in an open prison. Because I can't leave whenever I want to. I can go to a beach and there's no walls, no fences, and no gun turrets. But if I leave here, which I can do if I want to, and when I get to France, because if I'm a strong enough swimmer, I could swim it. I could get to France. Sooner or later, someone's going to ask me for a passport. And if I haven't got one, then a private political army called the police are going to arrest me and then take me back to the prison I escaped from. But when you look at the word prison, you'll see it's a vessel that human beings are legally committed to. So I am legally committed to a prison, and it is. But this is what they call a debtor's prison, and it's like Marshalsea or Fleet, and Marshalsea prison and Fleet prison come about in 1326. We're talking a long way back. That's actually what Tyler burnt down. He didn't do all the other stuff that he said. He burnt down Fleet prison with the help of the Cornish, but they got crushed at Blackheath. And that's why that pier interested me, because he's David James, Lord James of Blackheath. And what I was going to tell you about is I've got possibly a meeting coming up with him, off the record meeting. But we're going to be sitting around the table having a little chat, because I can tell him some things, and I've got a funny feeling he's going to tell me some stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to that if it comes off. So I worked out I was living in a prison. I'm legally committed to it. it has a private political army called the police force. I looked at slavery, and I figured out, well, it's not hard to figure out, that the slavery is defined by the oppression of people through violence. I looked at what I live in, and if I don't do as I'm told, guess what? They'll bring violence to me. And they will kick my door down, and they will use any, well, you know, we know what reasonable force is in police terms at this moment in time. You know, obviously shooting people on tube stations is perfectly okay, and, you know, people in protests getting hurt, and all different aspects, you know, reasonable force, and what they just recently did to that poor lady in that police cell. I don't know if you've seen that.
No,
Oh,
I
it's
didn't
awful.
paper.
Awful.
It's terrible.
Absolutely terrible. Stripped her completely naked, handcuffed. I'm sure they handcuffed her feet as well. They did. They handcuffed her and they just left her in a freezing cold cell, closed circuit television, no dignity, nothing.
Why? What has she done?
Refused to give a name.
What?
Yeah.
Nothing else leading up
No.
to it? She wasn't,
No.
she wasn't suspected of anything?
No.
She hadn't...
They don't
got a
need an excuse.
background?
Don't need an excuse to do it.
Well, wasn't that policeman suspended for that?
Yeah. Yeah, they did. Yeah.
One of the other.
Because that's not an
policemen
everyday
told him.
practice, is it?
No.
Unfortunately, it is.
I don't know so much.
If you, I'll quite happily show you the emails I get from the police themselves.
About things that are
and
going
I'll-
on.
Whereabouts was this?
I'll quite happily give you the information the police have told me about how they've done things to make sure they secure
Cooperation.
cooperation. Even to hanging people up by their left ankle. Literally.
Why the left?
Don't know. That's what they chose at the time. Maybe it's more painful.
We have anti-terror laws now that make it easier for them to do so.
Of course it does. They can do anything they wish. Anything. And see, the thing is, when you walk into it, you got. I know. I can see. Yeah, I mean, it does upset a few people. When it does, it gets to you. But if you walk into a police station or you're taken to a police station, there's no one to back your side of the story.
You have your rights.
You have nothing. I promise you, nothing.
You have your rights. You're entitled to ask for certain things. Medically as well. I've done forensic nursing in police stations
Okay.
in Norfolk.
Go and do it
And you
now.
always.
Go and do it now. Seriously, go and do it now. I promise you, that has all been removed.
It hasn't. You met Sarah last week. That's what she does every day.
I promise you.
That's what she does.
We just recently had someone who I talk to quite closely has a brain tumour. He's dying, and he was recently arrested. He was denied all his medication, every single aspect of it.
I think these are individual cases. Majority of the time, you are entitled to medical.
Yeah, I can see where you're coming from. I don't want to influence.
Around this area, you have paramedics that are called in. Around certain other areas, Norfolk, Suffolk, you have a nurse or a doctor that is called in.
Okay, well, like I said, you are.
So you don't want
you're
anyone
quite
to
happy. You know, I'm quite happy to accept your opinion,
Yeah.
but I will.
That's what
100%.
part of our job being forensic nurses is. You go around police stations all over.
Okay, and so,
Does it depend who you get though? Because there's always these corrupt people.
well, I don't want to label everybody who's the same. Obviously, I do know a lot of police officers who are good guys, and they really are good. Up to chief inspectors, I've spoke to them. But the point is, I do know a lot of bad ones as well, and I do know the antics they get up
Good
to.
and bad and everything.
No, I'm sorry. If there's going to be a structured service, the way the police profess they do work, then it should be across the board, and there should not be these incidents in any shape, form or fashion. And I'm sorry, that's my opinion, and I'll maintain that. And until such time as that is across the board, where everyone can enter one of them places, no matter what they've done or what they've said to anybody, and receive the same element of treatment, then there needs to be something sorted out. And I maintain that the police need to be taken off the streets and the red caps go in their place. Because the red caps are sovereign.
What's
Red
the
caps are the most powerful police
military
force,
police.
most powerful police force on the land. I've actually been myself at the hands of these people. I know what they're capable of and what they're willing to do to secure the case. I've witnessed it, and I've actually been abused by the police. Just
But
because,
I'm saying that's not an everyday occurrence, even if you think it is personally. I've been in
Okay.
a lot of police cells with patients, and it's not an everyday occurrence.
well, I've been probably as a child, well, as a teenager, I was arrested a lot, and it's happened to me quite a lot. So it's certainly not an isolated incident with me, and it's certainly not an isolated incident with a lot of people I know. So it's not as isolated as we care to think it is, or care
But
to
you're
feel
saying
it.
if we don't conform